last week's case study. I think you all did a good job with the case study. You addressed the question well. It's well structured also. And I was very happy to see that it doesn't look like you used AI. Um, but it's a bit on the short side. I think it's what, 360 words. So you can write up to 750. You don't have to, but I would like to see at least around 500 words. It's a bit too short. So I haven't penalized you, but in the next, in this week's case study, aim to have between 5 and 700. Okay? Just it'll give you a chance to engage more deeply with the sources that we're working with. So right now you've used a few citations here and there. We're not really seeing the source analysis. I would have liked to see a little more of that. So this week case study, editors, do you want to explain what are we looking at this week? What is our question? What's the case study about? Mustafid or Salman, one of you.
The case study is about the exploration and discovery that changed the human engagement during the end of 19th and the beginning of the 20th century. Like in the period.
Okay. What's the challenge question? What are we trying to answer?
Next question is that how did the race to reach the Earth's poles contribute to scientific knowledge and national identity?
Yeah, exactly. So again, when you're looking at a question, always try and break the question up. See if you can divide it so you know exactly what you're addressing. So in this case, is there a way to break the question up? Do you guys think we can divide it so that it can help us structure the essay? What are they asking us?
The contribution towards the scientific knowledge and also the national identity.
Yeah, so they, yeah, exactly. So those are two natural divisions you can make. And then as you're constructing your points for the essay, look at which points you can slot into scientific knowledge, which could become one paragraph. So you'd have your introduction with a thesis statement, some kind of argument, scientific knowledge as a paragraph, national identity possibly as a paragraph, and a conclusion, right? Or you could have some points that are crossover. So you might want to use them to bridge the two paragraphs. So that's one way to start thinking about it structurally. And let's look at the first part of the question. What are they really asking us? What do they mean, the race to reach the Earth's poles? Who's racing?
What
is
is
the race?
countries stated?
The countries? Which countries?
European nations and others.
Yeah. And why do you think they're racing? What is the race here? Even before we get into the sources, have we seen European or other imperial powers in competition before? Are there other instances we can point to? Power and domination, I'm saying, yeah.
It means so fast go and achieve reaching the pole. It means something reach to the Earth poles.
Nationalism as well, glory. Yes, Shiham, really good point. Vasco da Gama. Yeah, so we have actually seen this kind of competition play out over the centuries, right? It might be different players, but we saw the Portuguese carving out a new way to access the Indian Ocean. We've seen competition between these powers for natural resources, for territories across the world. We've also seen them compete on scientific inquiry, right? We did a case study on Darwin, and we saw various aspects where they are racing with each other. And to what end? You all are right. Yeah, the moon landing was fake.
We can add the Vasco da Gama in our right.
You can. You're welcome to take any approach. You can absolutely argue that this is not the first time that they were racing. And this was one of many explorations that we have already studied that yeah, so you can absolutely bring that in. And in fact, I'm glad, Shyam, you brought the moon landing in, because that's actually a great, more recent example. Something you all probably are aware of is the race for space, and we will talk about that when we come to the Cold War, and look at how different countries and during the Cold War was really the US and oh, sorry, okay, ish, okay. Um, Sorry, I'm trying to keep an eye on the chat as much as I can, but I keep missing some, so excuse me for the attributions I'm giving. Yeah, look at the race for space, the use of resources deployed by governments, and to what end? And some of those questions are still relevant, right? And the race for space has really expanded. Now you have other countries in the mix, not just the Soviets and the Americans. So, I mean, now it's Russia, but you also have China. You have India recently sent has completed a bunch of different successful space missions, and so that race still exists. And to what end? Why do countries invest in this? What do they get out of it? Scientific knowledge, absolutely. National identity as well. And so we're going to look at all those questions and those themes through the context of um, the exploration of the Earth's poles in this case study. So it's quite interesting. I think you'll find ways to connect it to some of these other instances to show taxes. Okay. Okay, let's dive into the case study. So who are the players? I saw mention of a few, but background information, it is telling us who and when. What era are we referring to? What time period are we working in here?
19th century.
Yeah.
19th and early 20th century, yeah. And who are the main players?
The British, the French, Germans, mainly.
Yeah, the Americans, right?
Americans.
So a lot of
yeah.
your leading European imperial powers, you also have America now really stepping up on the world stage. But you also have an interesting outlier that one of you mentioned in the chat as well, and that's Japan, right? So Japan is an imperial power as well at this point, but an Asian imperial power. And so that's the competition with these expeditions. So why don't we look at, I'm just going to scroll down. Let's pick up a source and get into it. Why don't we look at this? Let's look at primary source 3. Anyone, same beginning, when you look at a source, what's the first thing we ask?
What?
What is it exactly? So what is it? What is the source? What are we looking at?
Okay. Is it case study 3?
Yeah, Ishan, we're looking at a travel log. Exactly. And whose travel log is it? Yes, Ross Marvin. And what is the travel log of? Which expedition? Whose expedition? Where? When? Right. North Pole Expedition, 1908. This is really all in your title, right? We can see it. So let's spend, yeah, exactly. And it's headed by Robert Peary. Who is Robert Peary? Some of the other sources give a little bit of information on him. So he's an American. Yeah, he's clearly an American explorer. Is this his first time to the Arctic?
Eighth time.
Eighth time, exactly. So he's not new to the process. Yeah, Ishan's right. He's favored by the American President Roosevelt. And how do we know that? There's an interesting bit of information here in the background. What is this? What's this background information telling us?
US.
Yeah. So Teddy Roosevelt has backed the expedition. What does that mean, like in terms of implications for how we want to answer our question? Yeah, there's a letter as well. One of the sources is a letter. But what does it mean? He has money, of course. What else? What does it mean for the challenge question that we're addressing? Does it have any connection to national identity in any way? Yeah. The president wanted any thoughts, how does this connect to national identity? Why would an American president care? American pride? What else? Any other thoughts? Why would you care who landed on the moon? Vijay, any thoughts?
Like it's a sense of like national prestige. Like they're
Yeah.
the first ones to like go to the moon. So similar case for this one also. Like
If they're not the first ones, someone's already been there. Then why does it matter?
it might also be like personal interest for exploration. Might be that also.
Yeah, absolutely. But also think about some of the other expeditions um, we've come across in the past, right? Think of, why did Vasco da Gama head towards India? What motivated that? Like resources, exactly. So there's an aspect of exploration for pride, of course, national pride, national identity, but also for like what you might discover there. We're talking about imperial powers who've expanded across the world. They control vast territories across the world. And for them, resource extraction is obviously a huge part of an enterprise like this. You don't know what you're going to find. You don't know how it might be useful, how it might change. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was telling like it's like an opportunity to grab like.
Exactly. It's an opportunity. And so that's one, the economic side of it is one. And what about like from an enlightenment perspective? We looked at enlightenment ideas. How does that connect in any way to something like this? I'm saying no. Okay. You don't think, Shyam, for example, the quest for scientific inquiry, to understand the world better, to organize knowledge, wouldn't that in some ways one could argue that links up with an expedition like this, exploring an unknown territory? Would you all agree, disagree?
I think this like comes under like enlightenment. Enlightenment, since like it's about the scientific exploration and the overall like the progress of the human civilization also.
Yeah, absolutely, Sadhan. So there is that.
Under this enlightenment.
Yeah, I think there's absolutely a link you can draw with enlightenment ideas, and you can root it in that. And this sense of you're doing something not just for America, but for humanity, right? So there's a nobility to the cause that may or may not be real, but it is ascribed to it. And that could motivate someone like Theodore Roosevelt to put his money behind an expedition like this. Okay, great. So I'm glad. So think about it with these points in mind. Let's analyze the source a little bit. Why don't we spend 2 minutes reading the travelogue and then discussing what we can gather from it? So don't look at the image yet. Just look at the travelogue entry. Okay, what are we getting from the source?
It's highlighted daily challenges faced in harsh environment, harsh Arctic environment.
Sorry, Mr. Figure, you broke up for me. I couldn't catch what you were saying.
I
Could you
say
repeat that?
I said there are highlights the daily challenges he faced.
Yeah, absolutely. Highlighting daily challenges. And what are those daily challenges? What's the sense we're getting of the nature of an expedition like this? Is it easy? Like what are the conditions he's describing?
He said sometime emphasizes the importance of cloth and survival in the extreme cold and other essential roles.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Absolutely. And look at the makeup of, yeah, Mustafa, go ahead.
it's nothing. There is
Okay. Um, no, you're right. There's an emphasis on daily life. There's also these are extreme conditions, right? Icy conditions. They're not. It's obviously not easy, and he's obviously not alone. He has a crew of people on the ship with him. And what are the kind of people? So Macmillan is keeping the game list. What is a game list? What does he mean by game list?
gameless. Oh, yellow.
Meat list, yes, it is the meat list. It's what animal game here we mean animal. But if you look at your compass points, you'll also note that a game log is not just what animals they have that they can, that they have access to, but also what animals they might find in the area. And so link this back to your idea of gathering scientific knowledge as well, is that they're recording even the fact that he's keeping a travel log, similar kind of in a way to what we saw with Darwin, right? That they're recording what they're coming across. And because they're exploring unknown territory, they might come across animals, flora, fauna that has never been seen before. Yeah, new land, they're going to discover something new, and they have to keep records of that. And so that idea of they have that awareness going into the expedition that they are looking to extract that knowledge. It's not just for the thrill and fun of discovery. Um, okay, let's look a little bit. I think Ishan mentioned this in the chat as well. Let's look at the next part of the same source. So from the travelogue, we also get a photograph. What do we see in this photograph? And how does it link up with our question? Who's in the photo?
A girl, individual.
Yeah, an Inuit girl. Um, and
Uh,
what
me,
is she doing?
He is showcasing here the collaboration between explorer and local communities in achieving their goals.
Yeah. What else? What
What?
does it mean that an Inuit girl is on this ship, on the expedition with them? What's that conveying to us?
Also, some challenges he faced in the time of traveling.
Yeah, challenges. I think Ishan has a comment here about
Right.
collaboration. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, if we think about these expeditions, these people might be kind of invisible in the in the in the expeditions and in the success of the expeditions. They may not get the attribution, right? But they're clearly helping. They're aiding the explorers and they're helping them. So it does require some collaboration, which means it requires some level of local knowledge. And we saw that a little bit again with Vasco da Gama. If you all recall, when he crosses the Cape of Good Hope and when he's trying to make his way to India, he doesn't actually know how to navigate the Indian Ocean. And he ends up hiring an Arab navigator with local knowledge to help him. And so explorers often rely on local knowledge to make these expeditions a success. And in this case, we're seeing it with this Inuit girl, but the description does tell us that there were families that worked aboard the ship. Jim, I see that you've written she needs money, so she is working on the ship. So she may need money, but do we know if she's making money? Did she need money? We don't actually know that from the source. So that I would hesitate to do that kind of guesswork. It might be an educated and a good guess, but this source isn't actually giving us that information. So you can't draw that conclusion based purely on this. Yeah, so just be a little careful about reading into these sources a bit much and making sure that um, you're only deriving the information that's being presented to you and using that as evidence and not what we might think is happening, but what we can see is definitely happening. I don't think she's labor because of how happy she is. Interesting. Whether she makes money or not, the relationship seems exploitative. Is that something we should? Absolutely, Nuhash. Really important point. And I was just coming to that. It kind of links up in a way with Ishan's point about how happy she is. Is we don't. So I want you to also, when you're evaluating a source, think about the medium that's being used. Don't just take the source at face value. So this is a photograph. Cameras are a pretty new technology at the time. Odds are she's never seen a camera before. She may have, but cameras are not available to everyone. It's not like it is today. But even if you relate it to your experience with photography today with social media, when you see a photograph on social media of someone smiling, does that mean that they're happy in life?
Not really.
Not necessarily, right? They might be. They might actually be happy. They might be projecting happiness. They might be faking it. And so you have to be really careful about reading into what you're seeing and always look at this with a critical eye. We don't know what's happening outside the frame of this photograph, right? Anything could be happening. There could be two men standing with guns pointed at her. We have no clue. Not to say that I want you to do that kind of guesswork, but what I mean here is that don't take it purely based on what you see, because what you see is what the person taking the picture wants you to see, right?
One thing, I hope she is a guide or helper who wants come to explore the post, and she helps the tours. I mean, as a tour guide something else in these frozen areas.
Yeah, they are possibly there to guide them. Absolutely. We actually haven't, it hasn't been specified exactly what work they're doing on the expedition, but we can see that they're there. Nuhash has an important point here in the chat about the fact that, yeah, your presence in the village itself would be considered exploitative because there's a power imbalance. Exactly, there's a power imbalance. The imbalance also comes from the fact that he gets to control the narrative, right? The person behind the camera is the one controlling the narrative. They're choosing to photograph something. We get to see what they're choosing to photograph and whether or not they're sharing that photograph. Consider power dynamics in this sort of equation. It's really important. Even if this girl looks seemingly happy, and maybe she was happy, the point is we will not draw that conclusion when we do our analysis because we don't know. And what you would absolutely want to bring in is that there's an element of exploitation at play here. So that's one part of it. The other thing is just when you look at visual sources, be as you're being careful. So, what are some hard facts that we could derive? Let's think beyond her smile. Um, is the image telling us anything else?
He has to
Something
start
that maybe is
working.
not disputable? Yeah, go ahead.
She had to start working at such a young age.
Yeah, she's working at a young age. Maybe she's working, maybe she's accompanying her family. We don't know. We don't know if she's working. What's some other, like, purely based on the visual information that we can gather from this photograph?
Maybe she doesn't have enough clothes regarding that it's snowing around there, probably, or cold.
Possibly,
She
but
doesn't have.
what are her clothes, Nafisa? What is she wearing?
She's wearing kind of a jumper, like a winter clothes stuff.
Yeah, but
Like
she's wearing what
that.
looks like animal hide,
It's
right?
covered.
There's fur, there's animal hide. So that's a conclusion we can draw that they were using this is the kind of material they were using at the time. That gives us an insight, right? That's not disputable. We can see that. What else? Anything else?
Okay, yes.
We know the conditions in the background look extreme. It's obviously very cold where they are. It also, what we can draw, the conclusion we can draw is it looks like she's on a ship. Very fashionable. Yeah, you're right, Nuhash. I think a lot of people today would love to wear something like that. Um, it also looks like she's standing on the ship, right? There's a rope at the back. You can see a little bit of the wood. So she's on the deck of the ship itself. So it means she's accompanying them on the ship. She's up above board. She's on the deck. These are some hard facts that we can actually extract. Beyond that, everything else you're reading into it, you're kind of projecting your opinion into it. So be very careful as historians. And it's a natural tendency to do that. Everyone struggles with that because you are interpreting sources. And so there is a little bit of ambiguity around how you do it. But just correct yourself and make sure when you're writing your analysis, ask yourself, is this actually there? Or am I thinking this? Am I projecting this onto the source? So just be careful with that when you analyze any source, but especially with visual sources, we tend to fall into that trap a little bit. Great. Let's do one more source before we. Um, let's take this one. So this is Robert Perry's other source. What is this? It's another photograph, so it'll be nice to contrast these. Anyone quickly summarize what the source is? What type of source is it? Yeah, so not just first identify what the source is. What are we looking at? Is it a photograph? A painting.
Yeah, some people are going to the pole to plant their flag.
Yeah, so it's a photograph, right? And it's a
Mm.
photograph from the same expedition. Let's look at the date. April 7th, 1909. And then the source we were just looking at, the travel log, was August 20th, 1908. And we know that they were on the ship, they hadn't reached at this point. What does that tell us just from the dates? Very important to look at the origin. So, when we read history, we see set timelines, but actually, when you're looking at primary sources, you are the historian, you have to construct that timeline. What does this tell us about the timeline? Yeah,
Duration of their journey, probably.
exactly. Exactly. It's the duration of the journey. So we know that they arrived only on April 6th, 1909. And we know from this source that they set out on July 6th, 1908, right? So the
Almost a
sources
year.
also help weave a timeline together. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was saying almost a year. It took them almost a year to reach.
It took them almost a year, exactly. And we don't know what, maybe the travelogue has other entries. We don't have access to those. But just purely on this, that's something you could add, right? That's information that you have now without them having to tell you. You can piece that information together. Okay, let's take a look at the photograph itself. What's it depicting? What's going on here? People holding flags of the US. Yeah, is it just flags of the US?
Different
No,
flags. Five.
different kind.
Is there anything we can understand from the types of flags that are being held up? What does it tell
They
us?
are national
Yeah, there's a sense of nationalism.
pride.
Something
Mhm.
American and US Navy flags, right?
Yeah, there's a
Because
Navy flag.
yeah, because there are said that Robert Perry was the member of US Navy.
Yeah. Would you also say that there's absolutely national pride, but also sense of personal pride? Robert Perry's taken flags.
Also institutional pride. Like they're from
Yeah.
like Robert Peary is from the U.S. Navy, so he was holding his Navy's league flag. So like their institutional prides also.
Institutional pride, his fraternity's flag, he's taken as well, right? So there's a mix there. It's not just national, it's also at a personal level of achievement with expedition like this. Also, what about the fact that they even thought to carry flags? And again, I'm glad the moon landing came up because we all know that iconic image, right? When the Americans plant the American flag on the moon. Why is that? Why do you think conquering that part? Yeah. So this idea of rooting the symbol of your national power on land, to be able to assert that and symbolically show that, seems really important. And it's really not a new concept. And so you have them taking these flags to the pole as well, to plant those flags. So you could link that up to national identity in a big way. I think this is a good source for that. Any other thoughts
Like control
on
over the
this?
land, that land, control over that land.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
They claim to that they are fasting they fast plant the flag, so mm, they claim the land further as a new expansion of their country.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. So you can show that though they're not actually settling on the land, but yeah, there's a sense of claiming. Interesting point, Ishan, about the Inuit people also holding the flag, but would you say it's showing their contribution? They're not holding their own symbol here. They're being kind of used as bodies to hold flags that the Americans have brought. What does that say? The fact that they actually can't display their own identity here. We can't even tell, we can't see their faces, and they're not holding up anything of theirs. Yeah, they are under Perry. Yeah, there's no equality at play there. They have to listen to him. So is it really showing their contribution? I wouldn't necessarily say it's showing their contribution. Possibly forced. We don't know if they were forced. Yeah, small mercies. At least he showed their faces, I guess. Okay, great. So I think, yeah, so just, I mean, I think this was a good way of looking at visual sources and seeing how much information we can actually extract from these photographs. We should wrap up soon. I know it's very late at night for all of you, so I don't want to drag this on. Are there any other questions or things you'd like to look at before we call off? Editors, are you guys feeling confident about taking on the question?
Yes, hopefully, yes.
Hopefully. I'm sure you will. I'm sure you'll do a good job.
We try our best. Very good.
You will. I'm very confident that you will. Just make sure that you do a slightly lengthier essay this time. Okay, so Nuhash is asking who the editors are. So actually, I'm glad you brought that up because we need to sort out. So there's a team member of yours who has not really been showing up, Tawhid. I don't know if anyone has information about whether he's planning to join. I'm going to send him an email together. I'm going to have to remove him from the course. We are now in case study 6, which is Sadman and Mustafichur. And then we have case study 7 coming up. Does anyone know who's taking that up?
Nafisa.
I believe
Nafisa?
yes, Tarika.
And 8 is Kapil.
Okay.
9 is Nuhash.
Tarika, I do have some
Sorry.
questions regarding that. Am I audible?
You are audible, yeah. Yeah, Nafisa, go ahead.
I have some question regarding my next week's submission. Is it all right that I ask you after this?
Yeah, sure, no problem. I'll stay on.
Sure.
Sorry, can you all just clarify who's doing case study 8?
8 is Tobi. Case study. Tobi.
Is who? Sorry?
Tobi Diyash.
Okay. No. So I would say, Nuhash, do you want to take up case study 8? Because
which week is I'm going to try to do the calculation.
case study, is that the exam week for all of you? Is that your that's exam week, isn't it? 8 is
Yes,
exam
it
week.
Yeah, 8 is.
Okay, so Nuhash, stick to 9, and case study 8 we might then skip, though I'll have to make that an equal thing for all teams. So let me get back to you on that. But Nuhash, you can stick to case study 9. That's fine. Okay, great. So I think we have that sorted. Any other questions?